Today on Israel Hayom Insider, as Israel takes a battering on U.S. college campuses, young activists are looking for new approaches to defending the Jewish state. With me in the studio, Zionist activist Leora Noor Eisenberg. Hi, Leora.
Hi.
I'm Steve Ganot. So, Leora, we're talking about college campuses, but you actually are not a college student yet.
Not yet.
You're 17 years old. You're a high school student in Minneapolis, right? Mm-hmm. How did you get involved in pro-Israel Zionist activities at such a young age?
So I never really thought about it. It was always kind of natural. I lived in a very Jewish Zionist home. Mm-hmm. We gave money to AIPAC. We danced on Yom Ha'atzmaut, but we never really did anything. At least they didn't expect me to. Just support Israel quietly. And then last summer, I lived in France during Tzuk Eitan, Operation Protective Edge, mm-hmm. and that was horrifying, to say the least. I would walk home and there'd be anti-Semitic, anti-Israel protests in the street saying, death to Jews, death to Israel.
And you were not in Paris, right?
No, I wasn't in Paris. I was actually in the middle of nowhere. I was near Switzerland in the Alps.
Okay.
And that was the first time in my life where I had to stand up for Israel. Mm-hmm. And that was a big change for me. And I thought, wow, maybe I should do this more often. And then I started learning Arabic later on, a couple months later. Mm-hmm. And when some of my friends started figuring out that I was a Zionist, they started giving me a lot of trouble. And I had to start standing up for Israel.
Interesting.
And that kind of led to it.
And so your language studies, you speak how many languages?
Speak 9.
9 languages. Wow. Hebrew, Arabic, English, French,
German, Yiddish,
Russian,
Japanese.
Japanese, wow. Okay, so you can do pro-Israel activism in all these languages.
Yeah, and I have.
You've got a lot of, you just mentioned, you've got Palestinian friends, Arab friends, you're pro-peace,
yeah,
and you're pro-Israel, strongly in both. And you believe in building bridges, right?
Yep.
And coexistence. How do you combine these two worlds in a sense? I mean, usually on the pro-Israel side, they don't have a lot of Arab friends usually, and usually people who do are not so pro-Israel.
Right.
So has that been a problem for you?
It has been a problem in the lashback that I've gotten, but for me personally, it never has been. In fact, the biggest push that I got in my work was from an Arab, was from Ahmed Maligi, the Egyptian peace activist. So I never saw that being a contradiction, my being Zionist and my having Arab friends and Arab Zionist
right.
friends.
It shouldn't be a contradiction, but so often it seems like it is, or so often people think it is.
I think for me the biggest thing was, first of all, I'm normalizing the image of the Jew and of the Zionist.
Explain what you mean.
So when I talked to my Arab friends, many of them had never even seen a Jew before. And the first question they would ask me is, why don't you have horns?
Yeah.
So I realized that for them, meeting a Jew was critical. They saw how normal I was, and as a Zionist, how normal I could be too. Mm-hmm. And I think once I got some lashback from my Arab friends saying, how could you be a Zionist? I said that was my goal, to show them that a Jewish state that wants peace also has Jews that want peace.
Right. BDS on campuses. You take college courses?
I do, yeah.
Okay, so you're on what campus?
University of Minnesota.
What's the atmosphere like right now?
It's pretty terrible.
Really?
We just had a lecture by the Israeli professor and philosopher Moshe Halbertal. He came for a very prestigious lecture. And I went to it. I was fortunate to have come 30 minutes late and see the BDS in action. I couldn't actually get into the hall. They were outside.
They were blocking your entrance?
They were blocking my entrance,
okay.
Which, if you think about it, at a university should never happen.
Right.
You should never be blocked from coming into a lecture. And they were using scare tactics. I was terrified to go in. That's
interesting because Moshe Halbertal is known to be very moderate.
Exactly.
Very moderate, very pro-peace. If they can't listen to him, who can they listen to?
Exactly.
Okay, so what happened?
They would stand up one by one and shut the speaker down. And they would come out. As I was sitting kind of outside, afraid to go in, they'd come out every 2 minutes and say, hey, good for you, good for standing up to him. By the time I got in there, I don't think anyone was really interested in listening to what he had to say. The atmosphere was totally ruined.
Okay, and on other campuses?
I imagine it's the same thing. From what I read, there was something, I believe it, somewhere at a university in Texas. I think in Austin, they had a similar situation. Jewish students, Zionist students more, are afraid to go to events.
What's your advice to a Jewish student who feels isolated? Some campuses have many Jews and lots of pro-Israel activities, but some don't. And if you're a Jew and a pro-Israel Jew on a campus where there aren't a lot of people like you, what does one do? What's your advice?
Find a group. Find a group, find whoever is there and see what they're interested in doing. Are they interested in building a bigger organization? Maybe have some events. And I'm not saying do the cultural events. Do whatever you feel comfortable with. Maybe.
I want to get back to the cultural events. You wrote a column for us called The Failure of Campus Zionism, in which you talked about how the current activities on college campuses, current Zionist and pro-Israel activities are not working. They're failing.
Yeah.
Too intellectual, too cultural, right? And we're
Yes.
speaking to ourselves.
Yes.
So what's the solution?
So we think that cultural events are totally innocuous. Like, I don't think much of them. I grew up with hummus and shakshuka, like whatever.
Yeah.
But for them, Israeli culture is a culture of theft and occupation. And for them, they can't handle it. So they'll stigmatize it. And people who aren't already comfortable with their Zionist identity won't feel comfortable going to cultural events.
Okay.
Intellectual events are the events like of the stuff of Dr. Halbertal. The BDS is not interested in dialogue. They're not interested in intellectual conversation. They're interested in shutting it down.
Right.
So an intellectual conversation will never work.
So what does work?
What does work is emotion. That's what they do. That's what they've been doing for ages. Scream against apartheid and terrorism and genocide. No one can be against that. We're all against those things.
Okay. Now, what do you say to a person who says, you know, yeah, the other side uses emotion because they don't have the facts on their side. They don't have the if you are intellectual and you're honest and you're I don't know, historically accurate, you're going to come out fair and you're going to come out with balanced. And the other side doesn't want to be balanced. So are we stooping to their level?
I don't think so.
Okay.
The most successful events I've seen were anti-terrorism rallies. And they were kind of Israeli by association. And they were fantastic. Hundreds of people came because we were against terrorism. We had the facts on our side. We're saying this is how many people were killed by terrorism. So many people are killed annually by terrorism. And that spoke to people. That's something they can relate to, and it's something they can stand behind.
But we don't want Israel to only be associated with terrorism.
Sure.
Israel is a normal country in many ways, and it's not just about terrorism. So
the other events that I saw that were really successful were pro-gay rights events.
Okay.
They had Israeli gay rights icons come to university campuses, and they were big. People like to see that, how Israel could be a champion of human rights as well in LGBTQ issues.
So basically pressing the image of Israel as a progressive state, the only democracy in the Middle East, and the most progressive state in the region.
We have to flaunt human rights because that's what the BDS flaunts. They say Israel is anti-human rights. And we have to show them that they're wrong, that we are actually pro-human rights.
Yep. Okay. Plans for the future?
I want to study Middle Eastern relations. I like to get into Princeton, but we'll see if that happens.
Okay.
Wherever I do, I'll be very happy.
Interesting. Why Princeton?
Princeton has the best department for it. They had Bernard Lewis, who was an icon in Middle Eastern studies up until fairly recently. Wow. And I would like to follow in his footsteps.
Well, Leora, good luck. It's great to speak with you, and I think that we're going to see Leora going into high places. Ron Dermer, you better look out for your job, because this is a future Israeli ambassador to the United States, I think. Time will tell. But Leora, keep up the good work. We really appreciate it, support you. The fact that you're supporting us, that you're supporting Israel is terrific. And the fact that you do it with such a positive attitude. I want to thank our viewers for continuing to support us and to watch us and to send us your feedback. We always appreciate getting it, and we will see you next time.